Okay, I finally made it to where everybody made it. And that, of course, is Boot Hill. See, Decky's up there on the opposite corner. We're overlooking, it's called a hill for good reason. It's up on a hill overlooking the valley. Now, I have a little thing here that tells each and every story here. So I'm going to walk along here at my at leisure, and if there's anyone worth mentioning, I will do so. These are a few unknowns here. Unknown. Pat Byrne. Thankfully not our Pat Byrne. Pneumonia. That got him. 3 months. Scarlet fever. This poor guy, we used to call him Indian Charlie. I remember him well. Anyway, he was found with several bullet wounds in his body. That was the end of Indian Charlie. Van Houten, well, he didn't last here too long because this place was only founded as a town in 1879, opened up as a burial ground a few months before that in 1878. Well, this guy must have been one of the first guys to make a visit here, his first and last. He was beaten in the face with a stone until he died. Trouble was over his mining claim, which he had not recorded. That certainly learned him a lesson. This guy was shot over the colour of his shirt. Well, that can happen. Perhaps his shirt was blue and somebody didn't like blue shirts. Anything is possible, who knows. This guy was shot. Two hot-tempered ranchers who disagreed over the best way to drive cattle, fast or slow. Now that is a very important aspect, and I could well see guys falling out over to drive cattle fast or slow. Anyway, this guy was a guy that believed in slow draws. The other guy was the guy that believed in fast draws. So that was the end of Chas, because he was a bit too slow on the draw. Alright, unknown. Jonathan Barton. Well, doesn't say how he died. Doesn't say. Here we've got two for the price of one. Believe it or not, they are from 1900. Two brothers. They were hanged. Don't know why they were hanged. I guess to make them, as they say nowadays, unalive. Gregory, nothing about him. This is his son. Died of meningitis. What a sad story. Alright, continuing on. Unknown. Poor Holo. He was killed by Indians. Now, I would point out that these Indians, in this story anyway, refers to the Native Americans, not to the fellows that are swarming into Ireland at the moment. They're in the news these days. Somebody beat up an Indian, and it was the biggest crime since Hiroshima. Anyway, continuing on. Unknown. Poor Peter. Well, he was only age 23, and he was a native of Germany. He was struck on the back of the head with a poker and killed by Thomas Doland during a fight. Well, he should have known better. All those Germans should have been wearing those helmets on them, and he'd be alive today. Mrs. Smith, who knows? Jasper Vaughan. Where's Jasper? Here we go. How you doing, Jasper? Jasper was shot in 1882. Unknown. These guys are all unknown. Here is the Jewish cemetery and memorial down there. Those Jewish people are known for piling little stones like that. That's their way of making a monument. Anyway, that is row number 1. So I'm going to go back now and do row number 2. There are 7 rows. So I'll have to step lively on it. But there's no rush on anybody in Boot Hill because most of them are going no place. So they're sticking around. Toby Dick, otherwise known as Dick Toby. I'll have to get his story on the way back. This somewhat reminds me of Killeen cemetery at home. A lot of dead people in them. This guy's got an enclosure here. He must be a big shot. We'll get to him on the way back up. Getting my steps in here as well. Now, Old Man Clanton. Well, old man, he must have been the grandfather of the others, or his father, or whatever. Anyway, he was killed before the OK Corral. He was ambushed on a cattle drive by Mexicans. All but one man was killed. Otherwise, we wouldn't know it was Mexicans. A lot of people don't like Mexicans. Maybe it's from that story. I don't know. Now, here we have the 3 guys that was killed at the OK Corral. Billy Clanton, he was 19, October the 26th, 1881. Frank McLaury, his brother Tom McLaury. There was 3 of them killed that day. They were the 3 outlaws. Billy Clanton murdered on the streets of Tombstone. Tragic results of the OK Corral. James Hickey. Oh, that's a different one. Okay. Anyway, that's a pretty big gravesite. We've seen the picture of those 3 guys in their coffin earlier on. Streets of Tombstone. Unknown, 3 unknowns there. Ah, James Hickey. Perhaps related to the Hickeys in Kilconnell. Very likely, the more I think about it. Fancy Hickey could have been one of those. Anyway, James was shot in the left temple by Claiborne over his over-insistence that they drink together. Well, now that is definitely a reason to plug a guy. Yeah, this guy was insisting that Claiborne would drink along with him, and Claiborne, I guess, had enough of Hickey, and that was a bit of a falling out that happened over there, guys. And that was, funnily enough, he didn't drink with him after that at all. So I guess the problem was solved. Dennis Cassadine, could have been from Clare, that fella. Anyway, he was killed in 1879. Unknown. Let's see what it has to say about Hicks. Hicks was an early visitor to this place as well. He was shot by Jeremiah McCormick, superintendent of the Lucky Cuss mine, a saloon brawl. Well, that guy McCormick had the look of the Irish because he was able to get the other guy. Okay, this here's a fancy one. It's a sad story. Frank Bowles. See him there? Wow. 53 or whatever he was. Got killed a few days after his birthday. He used his epitaph. That's a frequently used epitaph. He didn't make this up. That was he commonly used. As you pass by, remember that as you are, so was I. So once was I. And as I am, you soon will be. Remember me. That's a common epitaph. Hicks was shot. Okay, this is another. His horse became frightened and threw him. This caused a rifle discharge and badly injured his knee. He laid in camp for several weeks without medical attention, and when his friends took him to a doctor for amputation, it was too late. So instead of amputating the leg, they amputated the rest of him from his leg. His leg survived, but he didn't. That's the end of him. Alright, Thomas Morgan, where are we going? Unknown. Here we go. Thomas Morgan, another Irish fellow. Doesn't say too much about him. 1882. Maybe he died of natural causes, that far. If he did, he'd be one of the few in here. Wetzel. He was killed. He was stoned to death by Apaches. Well, fancy that. It was no kid made to falter from those Apaches when they got him. His friends were not far away, and it was thought the Indians wanted to avoid attracting their attention by shooting him. Well, those Indians were pretty smart, but didn't do poor Joseph any favours at all, and that was the end of him. Deloach. Ah, a female. Oh, Deloach, okay. Doesn't say too much about Deloach. Doesn't say anything about him. On to Margarita. She could have been Spanish, Margarita. Two dance hall girls quarrelled over a man and Gold Dollar won. Okay, so Gold Dollar was the name of the other lady and Margarita was the name of this lady. That's why they name a drink a margarita, perhaps after hers, because those two must have been well drunk if they were quarrelling over a man. Now remember, there'd be 20 men for every woman out here, so I don't know why they were quarrelling over a man, because there's no shortage of them. Anyway, Gold Dollar won and Margarita bit the dust. There's a lesson to be learned from that. Unknown. Unknown. We're back to Claiborne again. Claiborne, while drinking, sought to settle a real or fancied wrong with Leslie. This took place in front of the Oriental Club saloon where Leslie tended bar. Anyway, Leslie shot him outside his own place. That's good. Dick Toby, he had it coming. He's shot by the sheriff. Poor Verone, Gray, desperation. Unknown. Unknown. Who have we got here? Jeremiah Sullivan, or O'Sul Vaughan as he would have been called out here. He died in 1881. We don't know what happened to him. Continuing on our merry way. Unknown, unknown, unknown. Another unknown guy. Oh, Dan Dowd. Irish guy. Well, shiver me timbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Dan Dowd, Red Sample, Tex Howard, Bill Delaney, Dan Kelly. Pay note here now, there's a Kelly and a Delaney involved in this little story. Legally hanged, the 5 of them, on March the 28th, 1884. These men were found guilty of killing several people during the robbery of a store in Bisbee that is known as the Bisbee Massacre. They were all hanged on one scaffold in the Royal Courthouse Yard. Well, they deserved it, if you ask me. Because they'd been up to no good. And they were hanged. Alright. Dan Kelly, relation to myself. And he wouldn't be the first Kelly to be hanged, and he was not the last Kelly to be hanged either. So now that's 2 rows. So you'll have to bear with me because I'm going now up to 7 rows here. So I'm going to go back to the start of this row. And we'll speed it up a bit. Clouds are forming over there. There could be a little bit of a rainstorm or whatever. Some guy has found it. He might have been one of his ancestors. People will do that. They will seek them out and come and say hello. John Beether, hanged. 2 cowboys, drowned. John King, well, poor John King took a high jump. Strike 9 was got him. Ernest Brodeen's, a miner from Germany, murdered with 4 bullet wounds in his body. Suspected of killing was his partner, with whom he had been quarrelling and who had now disappeared. That's a sad story. It sort of reminds me of the Epstein case. Some people thought he actually shot himself 4 times. Tombstone, killed by Apaches. Oh, those Apaches were nasty guys, I guess. Oh, McDermott, another relation of myself. His spinal cord was fractured when his horse fell on him while crossing the San Pedro River. Oh, that's a sad accident. Unknown. Oh, George Lindley, who's one of the ablest members of the bar. He just died of natural causes, that fella. Quite a lot of cactus growing here, you want to be careful. John Martin. Well, John Martin would be another large fellow. He was killed while working in the Hochuka water line. A tested pipe was unplugged and a blast of water hurled a jack against his chest. He was a native of England. Sad accident. Now, this was a tough one because this fellow's name was Rook. And as you can see there, very unpolitically correct to tell you what happened to this fellow. He was shot by a Chinaman. We refer to them now as Asians, but a Chinaman anyway. It occurred in front of the Apple store on Fremont Street. For years the wagon wheel, in lately the Bella Yard. That was the end of him. Unknown. Joseph Manada. Okay. Freddie Fuss, what a name. He died from, a little boy died from drinking stagnant or poisoned mine water. That was fairly foolish. Unknown. Mrs. Brown. Natural death. Good for her. Unknown. Elizabeth Billings. Unknown. Unknown. We don't know what happened to that fellow. Unknown. Huh. This is a exciting story. John Heath. He was taken from the county jail and lynched by a Bisbee mob. He was called the leader of the 5 men who were legally handed and was said to have planned the robbery. He was hanged from a telegraph pole a short distance west of the courthouse. Now, those are the 5 guys. He was the leader of them, and that was the end of him. Oh, jeebies. Ah! See these down on my foot? That is what you get from being stupid and walking too close to a cactus. See them right there? I'll pull them out later. Well, actually, I'll pull them out now because they are quite sore. Oh my goodness. By one's mistakes, one learns. Ah, that's got them all. I most certainly would not like to fall into a cactus because even that little thing was enough to cause me a little bit of a bother. Alright. We are now going to do row number 4. I wonder is cactus poisonous? Well, we will find out. And I'm paying more attention now to the cactus. Once bitten, twice shy. Sweeney, Irishman, murdered. Mackenzie, nothing about him. Thomas Cohen, just a kid. Diphtheria got him. May Moody, diphtheria. John Gibson here. Fell from a wagon and his skull was crushed when a wheel of a heavy wagon ran over his head. Wow, that's not a good way to go. But there's no good way to go. This guy died of heart problems. Thomas Kearney, well, he's certainly Irish. He and another a person was blown up by a blast. Maybe in the mines, who knows. Unknown. Hilly Hickson. What a name. A schoolboy fell while walking on a pair of stilts and injured his back. He seemed only slightly injured, but the next morning he died suddenly with a spasm. Well, now, could you credit that? One day he was walking on air and the next day he was brown bread. I would avoid stilts unless you're somebody like Joe Carroll. I've seen him on stilts all the time. Ridgeway. A team of horses and wagons were found on a road leading out of Tombstone, investigating old man Ridgeway to be lying dead in the wagon. Unknown. Again, watch out for these cactus. H.B. Cook, don't know what happened to him. Hayes, no idea. Pat Lynch, another Irish guy, no idea what happened to him. Mrs. Campbell, wife of restaurant owner of that name, she died very suddenly of severe stomach cramps and spasms, suspected poisoning. Well, it wasn't my bollocks suspected poisoning. She owned a restaurant, and sometimes when you eat at restaurants, you eat at your own risk. And she didn't want to get a 1-star review, so they said she died of poisoning. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. Malcolm Campbell died of pneumonia. No information on these two fellas. Don't know why they're together. Unknown. 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 This unknown fella got a nice headstone for whatever reason. Okay, Frankie. Let's see what happened. Frank was shot over a mining claim. It was a minor problem over a mining claim. Unknown. Unknown. Now, here we go. Mrs. Stump. She died in childbirth from an overdose of chloroform given to her by her doctor. Well, that reminds me of the COVID jabs. Lord have mercy on Mrs. Stump. I think there's an expression, she fell in a stump. Maybe that's the origin of that expression. Okay, let's do roll number 5. In for a penny, in for a pound. Now, whoever wrote this little pamphlet with all this information that I'm reading out, if they had a little bit more spark, they would have continued from the end of one row to the end of the other row in a zigzag, and that would halve the amount of walking I have to do. Anyway, we're at row number 5. William Sumners, found dead with a blow on the back which broke 2 ribs and ruptured the liver. It's not good. Okay, we got sudden death here. He's a blacksmith. He's found dead. Amy Kellogg, natural causes. Seymour die. Well, those dreaded Apaches got him again. This year he was bringing a load of hay when he was shot by Indians, who, after their victims had fallen from the wagon, dragged them for 150 feet. Wow. Ah! I tell you, just when you think you're having a bad day, you found somebody that's having an even worse day. Johnson innocently brought a stolen horse and suffered the consequences. Well, if you buy stolen property, you can be the property is going to be taken away from you, and if you're in possession of stolen property, that in of itself is a crime. This fellow, he suffered indeed, because he was mistakenly purchased the horse thinking it was okay. Hanged by mistake in 1882. He was right, we was wrong. Well, we were wrong, but anyway. But we strung him up, and now he's gone. Well, now that is very fitting. He was right, we was wrong. But we strung him up, and now he's gone. What a fat lot of good that does to him. And that's Georgie Johnson. Ah, John Gillespie. He died instantly. He was one of the officers sent to arrest Billy Grounds and Zing Hunt, suspected killers of M.R. Peel. He died instantly when Hunt shot him in the head. Okay, well, right beside him, of course, is Peel. He was shot one night in the office as he worked late. Suspicion fell on Zig Hunt and Billy Grounds. Okay, so this is the guy that got shot. That's the guy that was trying to get the other two that ended up being dead as well. Billy Kinsman. He was shot by a woman much older than he, who was jealous and in love with him. Well, now, that of course reminds me of Macron. Macron is married to a woman that could be his great-grandmother. She's about 65 years older than him or whatever. I don't know how it ended up, but they were married anyway. There's a substantial age difference, and there's a lady here, a podcaster, she believes that Macron's wife is actually a man or whatever. Anything is possible, and this could be somewhat of a similar situation. Anyway, poor Billy, well, he was shot by a woman much older than himself, and that is the end of Billy. Unknown. George Fryer. What happened to George? We don't know. William Alexander, killed in a blast. Yeah, well, in mining, a lot of people get killed for a lot of different reasons. Red River Tom, shot by Ormsby. I don't know why they call him Red River Tom. Perhaps he lived out by the Red River. Alfred Packrell. Died from information from the bowels. Okay. Deron, shot by Slaughter. Oh, that's a good name for a guy that's shooting people. Slaughter sought to arrest him for his part in a train robbery. Unknown. Ben Scott. Teamsters ambushed by Indians again. Those two fellas. Died of wounds. He was shot in the face with a shotgun by one of the officers sent to question him in connection with the murder of M.R. Peel. Well, I suppose the two officers or whatever were in fear for their lives, and he was resisting arrest, and that was the end of him. Unknown. We don't know what happened to that person. Christina. Don't know what happened to Christina either. Unknown. 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 And the last person is on the row here. Another unknown. Ah, poor fellow that died by suicide. Actually, it was a lady. Alright. African American proprietress of a lodging house on Tough Nut Street. Arsenic got her. Okay, on to row number 6. Kenny, no info. McAllister, he was known as Happy Jack. He suffered a lung injury when he was shot in a fight over a piece of land. He was sent to Tombstone to recover but died of an old injury. And now, who in their right mind would send anybody to Tombstone to recover from a bullet wound in the lung? Anyway. Old man Cantrell was murdered by a man called Brown, who was later hanged for his crime. He was an old man, we don't know how old he was. This fellow was shot one night through the left breast and lived only a few minutes. He and Ed Williams, who shot him, were minors and had been quarrelling while working that day. The murder took place behind the old ice house near the corner of Tough Nut and 5th Street. This guy, he was shot by Kate John. Carpenter, First Baptist minister. Death caused by nephritis. Not too sure what nephritis is, but I assume it's a sort of a wasting away of the skin. That's a guess. This is another guy that was blown up along with the other fellow that I mentioned earlier on. Shot by Luke Short. I think Luke Short was a basketball player. Guns blazed again as these two gambling men met. Storms were shot in front of the Oriental Saloon, where Short dealt cards. Don't know what happened to him. Unknown. Douglas Lilly, thrown from a wagon and trampled by the horses, and died instantly when the wagon ran over his head. Stinging lizard. He might have been a native. Shot by Cherokee Hall. That's all the information we have for him. Poor Fred, the Marshal, Fred White. He was shot by Curly Bill in 1880. That's a sad story. But he was accidentally shot as he started to take Curly Bill's gun. This took place on the lot where the Birdcage Theatre now stands. Accidents will happen. Don't know what happened to him. Or her, whatever. Unknown what happened to him. This guy was shot. He was a minor. He was shot by a man called Popland, who popped him. Will DeLong, killed while playing cards. You gotta be careful when you're playing cards. Here lies Lister Moore. 4 slugs from a 44, no less, no more. Well, now that is a nice turn of phrase. The guy's name was Less More. So 4 slugs from a 44, no less, no more. Well, that is as good as epitaph as I've seen now in a while. I'm gonna make a special video on that one. Harry Curry, killed by Indians, 1882. This fellow died by drowning. Kansas Kid. Well, poor Kansas Kid was ran over in a stampede. Stampedes are very dangerous. Unknown. Thomas Fitzhugh. Well, he would be Norman Irish, perhaps. Norman, anyway. He was found dead one morning in the water closet back of Mrs. King's lodging house on Tough Nut Street, where he roomed. Well, we don't know exactly what happened to him, but that he ended up in the closet. Say no more. M. Lopez, a closed room and charcoal fumes. Alright, well that's obviously the fellow was killed by carbon monoxide poisoning. Simple as that. Closed means that there'd be no circulation carbon monoxide, very dangerous, odorless, colourless and tasteless gas. That was the end of him. Unfortunately, up in northern states, even today, people are overcome with carbon monoxide poisoning all the time. When the snow comes and is so high it covers their vent and their furnace room or whatever, and of course when they're trying to shovel out their car, if they do not know that the danger is involved, they may still leave, let's say, their pet dog in the back, and when the shoveling is done, he wants to keep that little doggy warm, of course, and when he gets into the car, it's no more bow wow because the dog has been overcome. Okay, there's more on the other side now, but I'm just going to do the 7 rows. Indian Bill, no information on what happened for Indian Bill. Mrs. John Clum, Mary was her name, no information. Jim Riley, well, that's an unknown. Here we've got Jim Riley, murdered in 1881. Three Fingers Jack Dunlap, shot by Jeff Milton, who we can only assume had 4 fingers, and he would have the advantage of him. Let's see what it says here. Dunlap, one of a band of train robbers, attempted to rob an express car which Milton guarded. He was critically wounded and his friends left him to die. He was found and brought to Tombstone. Again, why did they bring these to Tombstone? It's just a bad place. Where he lived long enough to inform on his friends. Alright, well, he serves them right because he was left. Unknown. Oh, here's Judge Annie. Sometimes called the Queen of the Red Light District. She was a nice girl. Nice lady. Peter Crawley, killed in 1881. This guy was shot, of course. He was on Teamster, and he was shot with 4 bullet wounds in his body. Indian Joe, another Teamster, is believed to have killed him, as both teams were found abandoned by the roadside. I've noticed that a lot of these guys were shot by 4 bullets. 4 must be a lucky number. James Tully, he was killed, crushed as the cage shot upwards towards the timbers overhead. Tully jumped and fell 250 feet to the bottom of the shaft. He didn't have much choice, did he? Unknown. This guy was shot by Frank Leslie, him killing. Results of a disagreement over Killian's wife. Aha, Leslie later married the widow, and they all lived happily ever after. Oh, we all like a story with a happy ending, so that's okay. McNimony shot. That's all I have to say about him. Let's see what we have to say about this fella. He wanted, oh yeah, Bronco Bill. He wanted to visit Tombstone one last time. Upon his death in 1953, Glenn's son sent his ashes to Edna Landon, president of the Chamber of Commerce. He arrived COD at $1.92. Mrs. Landon arranged his burial at Boot Hill on March the 27th, 1953. It was in his will. Anyway, if that was me, I would not have paid that charge at all, and I don't know what I'd do to him. I'd just toss him to the side of the road. Imagine that, sending a fellow cash or D with his ashes and expecting somebody else to pay the fee and bury him in Boot Hill. I have heard it all now. Okay, nothing about him of interest. He was shot. Cowboy Bill King, shot by Burt Alford. Okay. Unknown. John Wikstrom. A Swede. Oh no, he came a long way from Sweden. And do you know what happened to him? He was killed when a well he was digging caved in. Oh my goodness gracious. Those Swedes. They never learn. Unknown. 6-shooter Jim. Shot by Burt Alwood. Now, if I remember right, that guy, Burt Atwood, shot somebody else a while back. 6-shooter Jim. The problem was, he should have been called 7-shooter Bill, and he'd be alive today. Alright, that is that. Now, there are other rows back here, but you will get the gist of it anyway. These are from a much later, well, some of them are from a much later date. I see some Asian names here. Mike Woodman, etc. Mike Noonan, killed by Indians. Now, everybody that will come across this video will have heard of Boot Hill, and now, thanks to me and suffering a severe cactus wound, I could be here myself next week with this cactus wound, but hopefully I won't. You will get a feeling for what is involved in Boot Hill. I would nearly guess that this would have been the last person that was buried in Boot Hill. 1946. Alright, well, thank you to anybody that watches even a little bit of this to get the flavour of it.